Hi, and welcome back again to Tim Bigham's Big Time Options, Edges and Hedges. Today, looking at a bearish call spread on Apple Computers, AAPL, taking a guardedly bearish stance on an overvalued and overbought Apple. We'll take a look at both of those in a moment here, but as we always like to do, we take a fusion approach looking at fundamental, technical, and IV analysis. Normally we focus mostly on IV. In this case, more on fundamental and technical. So let's jump in and take a look, shall we? First of all, here is Apple as far as from the fundamental standpoint. You can see pushing towards now the #1 market cap stock in the U.S., right, as it approaches NVIDIA's market cap of $5 trillion, right? Apple not too long ago was more in the 4th and 5th place position, but the recent red hot rally in Apple has pushed it towards #1 again, where it resided for a long period of time, but that was all on multiple expansion. You can see here price to sales, right? Here's a 20-year price to sales chart. You can see Apple trading at over 10 times price to sales for the first time ever. That is almost unfathomable to me, right? To have a nearly $5 trillion market cap stock trading at over 10 times price to sales, to me, kind of screams maybe a little bit frothy as far as the valuations. PE also approaching 40 times again, right? Here's a 10-year chart over the past decade, only once, right? In December of 2024, we'll take a look at that in a second. Did Apple's PE exceed 40? We'll see what happens after that period of time. You can also see that PE, right, at basically the highest level over the past decade, as we said, maximum was 42.05 briefly here, right? The median right around 26 and change, right? We are now at 38. So we are trading at a massive premium to the median PE. Price to sales, as we said, the highest price to sales ever at well over 10 times. So certainly valuations getting stretched, to say the least. We like to take a look at the technical standpoint as well too. You can see here is Apple with that huge rally not too long ago. It was trading around 275. Now we're pushing above 300, right? But we did see the gravestone doji, right, on Monday's close here as the stock opened and raced to a fresh new all-time high at 323.45, but reversed and basically closed virtually unchanged towards where it opened on the day, right? This sort of price action where the stock races, makes a brand new all-time high, but doesn't hold on to it at all, reverses the close basically where things started. Many times a sign of exhaustion, right? Following up with today's pullback as well, kind of confirms that. You can see the technicals had gotten a little bit overbought. 9-day RSI hitting 70, weakening. We like to see that. MACD at recent extremes, to say the least, but weakening, right? Bollinger %B hit that 100 level, but weakening. IV certainly not ripping up or down, but certainly high enough for selling strategies, still making sense. We do have earnings coming at the end of the month on Apple. And as we talked about, we can simply push this out a little bit further and take a look what happened to that stock the last time, right? It was trading at that 40 times price to earnings ratio, right? The only time PE was over 40 over the past decade. You can see Apple had a significant pullback following that time. So certainly things getting stretched, to say the least. So Apple, which was trading back then at about 255, ended up dropping to 172. So over a 25% pullback ultimately in Apple shares. So certainly valuations and the technicals getting stretched, especially given the fact, as we said, we saw that gravestone doji, which is many times, right, a sign that, the buyers are now out of control. The sellers have taken charge, especially after this rip-roaring rally IV, as we said, pretty much neutral here, right? We have had an uptick off the lows back here, but off the highs here as well, but certainly still at levels around that 27, which makes sense for selling strategies. You can see it was a lot lower back about a month ago, about 6 vol points. It has popped up recently here, but off the recent highs around 29. And probably just as importantly, seasonality starting to kick in on Apple. So here's a 20-year seasonality chart on Apple stock. You can see July, by far the best performing month. Average gain almost 7%, up 9 out of 10 times, right? August up as well at, about 67%, up a little bit less than 5%, so certainly not a bad month. But then September, right, by far the weakest month, actually a negative return for Apple and up less than half the time. So entering a less bullish seasonal aspect. I found this chart interesting. This is from Citadel Securities. They took a look at the NDX going back to 1928, so basically 100 years, half-month seasonality. You can see the NDX, of which Apple, as we said, is the second biggest component, right? July, the first half of July, by far the best performing half month of the 24 out there, and also up over 75% of the time. So by far the best performing half month, but we're getting to the end of that, right? You can also see that the second half of July is negative, right? August virtually flat as well. September -2. So the NASDAQ, the NDX, entering into a less than bullish seasonal aspect as well. So things pointing seasonally to a kind of pullback perhaps on Apple stock. So the trade that I like here, and again, earnings coming out July 30th, going out to September, right, and selling the 350, 355 call spread for about 75 cents, right? You have plenty of upside cushion, right, on the stock. So you can see the stock at 314.86. You got about 35 points of upside or over 11% upside cushion on the trade. The max gain is 75 bucks. Max risk is simply 500 minus the 75 received, or $425. So your return on risk if Apple stays below 350 is about 17.5%, right? And then you do have shorter term out of the money put spreads to sell against it if you need to hedge, if Apple, for whatever reason, tends to rip higher here. So this is a trade I like on a certainly overvalued Apple, right? As we said, Apple from a value standpoint, price to sales at the highest level ever, right? Price to earnings over the past decade at pretty much the highest level outside of this, which preceded a huge pullback in the stock. Seasonality starting to enter a negative period, right? IV certainly still high enough with earnings at the end of the month, hanging in there, no question at all. And as we said, the technicals certainly with this gravestone doji, many times a sign of a top. So we're really not looking for a big pullback in Apple, but just for this rally to stop heading higher. The fact that Apple's valuation and technicals point to that certainly confirms it, and then include the seasonality benefit as well. So hopefully provide some insight how we go about identifying trades here at Big Time Options. So until next time, as always, here's a good trading.